Nighthawk Gold in the news. Nighthawk trades as NHK in the Toronto Stock Exchange. The 2019 drill summary sheds new light on Colomac and highlights key deliverables. With me now, CEO Dr. Mike Byron. Doc, appreciate the time and update as always here. Quite a highlight really put together. Really a good way to put it. A lot of drilling done on the property in 2019. Let's run through what's front and center here on your highlights.
For sure, Rob. This was sort of a culmination news release of as you said, the highlight reels of 2019, and this is kind of a needed thing to do. We had 10 news releases in 2019 on just Colomac drilling alone. So, the average reader could probably get lost in that, and so many holes and so many tables and so many figures that they ache for someone to synthesize it down and say, well, what did you learn? What did you accomplish in that campaign? And so that's really what this deliverable was about. And we did hit a lot of milestones, and I think that's where we can walk right through some of the key highlights and deliverables that we laid out. But clearly this was our most extensive and successful drill program to date. I mean, almost 41,000 meters that we drilled collectively throughout the Indian Lake Belt. But more to the point, if we're talking about Colomac, we drilled about 35,000 meters at Colomac. Well, to put that into context, since 2012, we've drilled 81,850 meters at Colomac, and we did 35 this year. So that puts you in a sense of how successful this year was for us in terms of getting up there with rigs and pushing holes into the ground. And with that, we were successful in finding our highest grade hit of all time ever at Colomac, just chasing an up plunge gap in our drill coverage that I didn't want to have that go into a resource update. So you want to fill all these little gaps so that you can get resource blocks populated in there. And surprise, surprise, we hit something that was twice as good as the second highest hit ever recorded at Colomac. Well, twice the size is something that really, you should stop and take notice of, like why. And clearly there was a textural change in the rock, without going too crazy on geology. But let's just say this feature that we saw really contributed to the porosity of the rock and allowing the fluids to come in and dump so much gold. So we are keen to find more of these. They're probably isolated phenomena, but it doesn't matter. They're just like juicy spots that you could hit and certainly impact your mining costs going forward. And so we'll be looking for those in subsequent years. We were super successful in defining that broad panel of mineralization and, spanning zone 1.5 and zone 2. So what does that mean? It means that now we're staring at a 500 meter long panel that's 30 to 50 meters in true width near surface, but it swells threefold up to 155 meters as we go to depth down to 800. Why is this important? Well, that's a massive volume of rock, and it's higher grade than your typical background. So this is sort of the perfect storm for us if we're talking about Colomac being something more than just a large tonnage, low grade open pit, which it was in the past. And we're down the road of showing there's other opportunities that are resident here, and we're the ones that are looking at bringing some of those to light. And one of them is, can we go underground and go deeper in the system? Well, you can't if you're not chasing better grade. And having that plus the true width expansion really sets this up as a strong candidate for that, and we'll test that going forward in 2020 when we start doing some of our internal engineering studies. So that just segues nicely that for some reason the top of the sill is expanding to depth, and what we did in 2019 was step out from that zone 1.5 and 2, and let's test the other parts of the sill to see if this truly is the geometry of this intrusion. And in 2019 we delivered on that. We drilled in zones to the south of 1.5, in particular zone 3.53, zone 3, and zone 2.5, and found pretty much the same things happening there. The top of the sill is widening to depth. So why are we the ones discovering this and not the previous producers? Well, they never drilled deeper, so they had no idea. If you're an open pit and that's all you think you are, then you're not going to drill deeper holes, and you'll never understand that there's a geometrical change to the intrusion with depth, and that could lend itself to, an opportunity to maybe do some bulk underground mining, as something that you might do in the future. So what we're doing as exploration guys is lining all up these opportunities, right? We're finding them, we're putting them on the table, and we're delivering them. And that's what we did in 2019. So it was a game changer year. We saw a lot of this come to fruition. We're pretty confident now that the entire intrusion, the top of the intrusion, which is where all the gold sits, is widening to depth. So we're looking at 7 to 9 kilometers of opportunity, and a large percentage of that has never been drilled. So we think that could really exponentially grow this deposit, and that's what we'll need 2020 and 21 to deliver on that front. We found a new style of mineralization in the south end of the sill, zone 3.5, just chasing the up plunge projection of that zone, and tagged into some quartz veins in the basal part of the intrusion that had never been known to carry anything of significance. And we got some really nice grades in there. So that's a wide open opportunity that we want to continue to pursue. So the rest, those are sort of the highlights of what we accomplished in 2019. And as you know, we're moving towards a resource update that'll come out here shortly. And from there, we'll pick up where we left off and really hit some of these opportunities that we touched upon in the summary.
And we've kept in constant touch on this, but looking like we're dang near back to work and all systems go again after this COVID hibernation.
Well, we're preparing on all fronts. I mean, as I said before, we don't have much control over how governments respond to the pandemic. We can control how we respond, though, and we can be ready when the gates are opened. And so we're working on all those fronts. We have our eyes and ears in play up in the Northwest Territories, waiting to see if the government starts to lift some of its regulations, some of its restrictions, and when that's done, we'll get in there. So I'm hoping, knock on wood, that we can be up there as the, we're seeing the same thing that they're seeing in the U.S. Their jurisdictions are starting to tighten, or starting to loosen up, and if that continues, then we think we might have a chance of being in there, by late June, early July, and that would give us plenty of opportunity to be active up until mid-October, and we think we can get 20 to 30,000 meters of drilling done by then. So we will salvage a big chunk of the 2020 program for sure.
Okay, appreciate that update, Doc. It's Dr. Michael Byron, CEO, Nighthawk Gold, NHK, Toronto Stock Exchange. Certainly look forward to checking back in when Nighthawk has more news to report.